It's a series. The Knicks win 2 out of 3. It's 3-2 Pacers with 2 to go. Road teams have been playing well. Can the Knicks do this? What are they doing better? What do the Pacers need to change? And thoughts on the series? It's a Locked On Pacers, Locked On Knicks crossover.
You are Locked On NBA crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everybody. We have a Game 6 coming in Knicks Pacers. The Knicks have risen to meet a moment in the Garden. The Pacers lose their first Game 5 of the playoffs. The Knicks look good, and the Pacers are on the back foot. As Rick Carlisle said, Steve Nash told him, when you win in the playoffs, it feels like you'll never lose again. When you lose, it feels like you're never going to win again. Both of these teams have ridden those emotions to this point in the series. Tony East here with Locked On Pacers. Gavin Schall here from Locked On Knicks to keep breaking down this series that has become very fun and exciting after the Knicks win 2 out of 3. Everybody's rising to meet the moment except for my voice, and we have quite a good Game 6 coming. Gavin, the Knicks look better. They look more connected, and they just had a great adjustment-y game plan to make Tyrese Haliburton and then thus the entire Pacers starting five uncomfortable. What are you seeing from the growth from this Knicks group, and is this stuff that you feel like they can keep doing if they get 2 more games?
Yeah, I'm incredibly interested, Tony, because look, the Knicks just went through a series, right, where Boston ran them off the floor on their home court, and the Knicks said, haha, that was cute, and then beat them by whatever, 40 or something in Game 6. And I'm curious if this is on a similar trajectory. I think everyone saw the clip of Tyrese Haliburton kind of smirking at the camera after, like, the implication was clear. It's like, all right, I kind of wanted to end this in Indy. I'm fascinated to see if we get a very different team, because you shared the stat with me that Jalen Brunson single-handedly outscored the Pacers starting 5 through 3 quarters, which almost makes me take this game less seriously as a whole. And just, I kind of feel like, all right, did Indy really show up in this one? That being said, I think the Knicks made real adjustments. We talked about it in our pod, but the defining battleground of this series has just been which point guard has been more comfortable. And maybe aside from Game 1, I think the answer has clearly been Tyrese Haliburton of the two. Mikal Bridges picking him up further up the court. I think the Knicks in general, like in any action involving Hallie, were just very much on point in terms of how they guarded. We're on the same page. Jalen Brunson was a lot more engaged, a lot more connected defensively. I said to you, I think even the other guys outside of Bridges were even better. Like Shamet, in the couple of possessions he got, Deuce McBride actually has the ability to like fight through a screen, unlike Mikal Bridges for the most part. Largely made him uncomfortable. And I'm curious if you think that's something that can continue. I do think maybe the biggest factor in it early was less like Bridges being brilliant and more so that Jalen Brunson made every single shot. And we know the Pacers can take the ball to the basket and push, but for whatever reason didn't really consistently find that rhythm. Obviously credit the Knicks somewhat for getting back and getting set.
I thought the pickup point thing was the biggest change that made life difficult for the Pacers. I read this stat. I don't know how to even look this up, so I just kind of have to trust it. That sure. They were guarding him an average of 50-something feet from 50.7, I believe was the number, feet from the basket, which was their longest of the series to pick up Tyrese Haliburton with this tracking data. And we've seen the Pacers have success with their press all playoffs, right? It like breaks up the rhythm of another team just enough, especially after makes it so the shot clock becomes more of a factor. So the Pacers who want to play fast to get their early shots, it's harder to do that. That requires good defense for Mikal Bridges on that pickup. He played great there. And then the other part of it was when Haliburton would get off of it or would get a screen and then move around, Bridges stayed with him so well in this game, off ball and on ball. So he never had driving lanes. When he did have a mismatch, he wasn't very good at getting around them. And when he did get around them, he saw shades of other Knicks very quickly. So all the stuff he wants to do, fling it around, run, get in the paint, get the ball to this guy, then that guy, then this guy, he couldn't do that. And when he can't get in the paint, the Pacers offense really kind of gets cooked up. So I think he's the face of it deservedly. He had an awesome Game 4. But I think that while he didn't play well, that's why the Pacers starting five looks so rough as a unit, is because he specifically couldn't create the shots that he typically can for the rest of the group. And Siakam was missing some of those tough fadeaways that he was hitting the entire series and didn't get as many chances to just punish small guys. So I think the Knicks deserve credit for those the changes that they made that actually made Tyrese Haliburton's life a little bit harder. The Pacers are good at solving this kind of stuff. But like in Game 3, I know you listened, it felt like to me, and the Pacers said it themselves, they beat themselves, right? They took themselves out of the way they want to play, slowed the game down, had a terrible second half. I do think they would say some of that stuff is true for game 5, but I also think that this one felt more tangibly different to me, and that the Knicks did stuff that was so obvious to make the Pacers play worse, and that's going to be interesting going into game 6.
Yeah, I mean, Mikal Bridges adopted a strategy that's been used on Jalen Brunson all playoffs of literally just hugging Tyrese Haliburton at times. And anytime a ref came over, he said, no, it's okay. We're in a group chat. We went overseas together. We were very close. And the ref said, all right, great. That's cool. And that's just not being called. Like there's a lot at the rim for both teams I've seen. I'm sure Pacers fans will think it's only the Knicks that are getting calls. Knicks fans will think it's only the Pacers that are getting called. Feels like they're letting everything go at the rim. And I think that maybe played into the Knicks' hands a little bit, particularly with that double big group, which I've somersaulted on about 3 different times now in terms of whether or not that's a viable starting lineup and a viable like high usage lineup for the Knicks. I think I just checked Pivot Fade. They were plus 18 in 13 minutes with that group. And obviously a lot of it was just Brunson being fantastic early in the game. I do think Tibbs has found better ways, like with Mitchell Robinson on the floor, to take advantage of his screening. And I think the Knicks' big screening in general had been a weak point, and Indy had been much better in that respect. Like, and obviously it helped that I think Nesmith barreling through screens versus Mikal Bridges just sort of like timidly, walking the park, like getting around them in due time. Like that obviously makes a difference. But I thought Mitch said some great ones, and I give a lot of credit to Tom Thibodeau, someone I've been ripping all series for, like just consistently like putting the Pacers defense into motion, and again taking a page out of their playbook before running a screen, and like having multiple things going on one play. Like the first Cat 3, like it was a double drag with Bridges and Cat up top, and Brunson comes off it, slings it to Bridges. Bridges makes an extra to Cat. That got him going early. And then like unless you want to explore that a little bit more, Towns is probably the next guy I wanted to talk about. I'm curious your perspective on the Pacer strategy there, because to me, like it's just so obvious in terms of how every other team has guarded him, where if he ever shares the floor with Josh Hart, like you just want a hard double there every time. And outside of game 4, those lineups have been great for the Knicks. I mean, I guess it's only 3 games of it, with like Shamet, Wright, Deuce, Hart, Cat. Like the Indiana, like when the Knicks have adequately spaced the floor, and if you're not going to play hard off Josh Hart, like that is an adequately spaced floor, like they have just had zero answer in terms of guarding Cat in a way that I think is almost even a little bit different from Brunson has done, maybe even a little bit different from what Siakam has done, in that they just it is honestly somewhat similar to Siakam, where they're just like physically is not an answer for him in Indiana's roster. And if I were the Pacers, because Cat has not been very good all year passing out of double teams, I thought in game 4 he was a little bit better at it, but I would hard double, and I would live with pretty much anything else in that group, because the Knicks have owned those minutes, and I think they've defined the Knicks wins and honestly the Knicks competitiveness at times in this series.
Yeah, it's tough for them to do some of the stuff that other teams have done with the matchups, just because if they're dead set on Nesmith on Brunson, and they're dead set on making sure Haliburton's in the best possible spot where he can't just get targeted every play, which we've seen the series, both him and Brunson are getting targeted every play, then you kind of have to do what they're doing, where A big is guarding Cat. It's been Siakam a lot more as the series has gone on. More mobile, more switching there. But that's against the starters. Yeah. And what you're referring to is something I keep talking about. Game 1, that early 4th run, Brunson's on the bench, Cat's playing pretty well. And it's like, man, how is this group doing so well? And it felt like every game I'm like, oh, they'll solve this eventually. And they haven't. It's through game 5. 4 of the 5 games, I feel like a defining stretch of the game has been Cat plus 4 defenders, Landry Shamet stripping the ball from TJ McConnell and hyping up the crowd and getting his name chanted. Like, how it's working. Jalen Wright's playing very well. And I said it after game 3. I said, if Brunson, I don't even care if Josh Hart's on the floor. If Brunson's off, they should be doubling him, right? Like, just make him do anything else. Make anyone else beat you. Yes, they have other good players. I'm not trying to take that away from the Knicks. I just think you're more willing to live with that as the Pacers, when it's not that Cat is just this awesome shooter, which he is. Like, he's been just beating guys off the bounce a lot, getting to the rim in those lineups. Yeah. Yeah, and that's been really challenging. Whereas if you have a second body nearby to prevent him from getting around, like he does that, he's looking right at the action, and then like it looks like he's going to go right because he's facing right. And it looks like in slow motion to me in media row, where he like pounds it left after that. But for some reason, defenders are just frozen. Like they can't shuffle their feet backwards fast enough. He gets to the paint and gets a shot up or whatever. I think they should send more bodies his way in those instances. And if it means someone else beats them, like they'd have to live with that if they lose game 6, because the injury shame and OG and Nobi and then make a bunch of threes, which is very possible. That stinks, but I think that because that lineup has been good in so many games, they got to think of something like that because it keeps being a problem.
Yeah, to me, like the biggest key there if I were Indiana was just earlier doubles, right? Because you do often see a second guy at the rim, and then it's just too late because Cat's footwork is too good at that point. He's able to go like up and through like the arms of Indiana, and again, this is something both teams are doing, but like you're trying to get away with like a soft touch foul in that situation, and Cat's he's just been too strong at the rim. If you do it earlier and you challenge him to make a pass, he is very good, top of the key, full survey. He can take his time and just whip it to a cutter. He's not like maybe this is a less relevant comparison for Pacers fans, but for Knicks fans, like he's not Julius Randle in terms of his ability to like kind of like preemptively like scope out. If I'm going to drive, this is where the defense is going to rotate. This is going to be open, and then quickly make that pass. Like that is just not his game. Like if you're able to double him like 15 feet, 20 feet from the basket, like he might move on, but I would trust Indiana, who's been good at this all series, to just be able to play in rotation and recover in those situations because he has just been too efficient. Something else he started going to is just like those early like seals. Like there was a play where Siakam fell asleep and Josh Hart just hit him on a laser. Like that is the risk, I think, of putting Siakam on him versus Turner on him. So I'm fascinated to see how Indiana adjusts there because to your point, coming into this series, I said the Knicks wings would be the X factor, and neither of them has had a particularly good series offensively. Obviously, OG Anunoby has had good games. Like game 3, he was a monster in, and yet last 2, he's 2 for 14 from 3. Mikal, like, finally had a pretty good shooting performance last game and took advantage of the Haliburton matchup a little bit more, got to his pull-up a little bit more. But Mikal right now is like not a great three-point shooter, has been a poor one throughout the playoffs, and never gets to the free throw line. So if you're living with him taking like tough pull-up twos in Indy, like if I'm the Pacers, that's something I'm content with all day. I would, particularly when the starters are in, like force those guys to shoot as much as humanly possible.
A couple other things the Pacers can do better and that the Knicks will try to ride into another win and try to get this back to the Garden. Coming up here on a crossover, Locked On Pacers and Locked On Knicks. Before we talk about any of that, we got to talk about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. The finals are near, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action, and FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Who's going to show up in the biggest moments? And how could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? FanDuel can help you with all that. You can combine live prop bets mid-game based off how the action is unfolding. And if you got a read on who's heating up, back it up with the same-game parlay. Got a $200 in bonus bets addition. Add to your excitement if your first $5 bet hits. That's a FanDuel offer. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here on Locked On Pacers and Locked On Knicks. Thanks for joining us today. The Knicks are playing better. The Pacers starters were bad. Will the series ebb and flow? Can the Knicks be the first team to beat the Pacers twice in a row since March 10th, Gavin? March 10th. Wow. The last time the Pacers lost 2 in a row. They've got to figure some stuff out. Nesmith looking hurt. Didn't even play 16 minutes in that last game. Myles Turner has had a rough series. Andrew Nembhard can't make a shot all of a sudden. And yet, I'm thinking the same things I thought earlier in the series for the Pacers. It's not easy given what the Knicks adjusted, right? If they're picking up higher up and pressuring you, the whole point of that is to slow things down. That is why this is not as easy as it was after Game 3, but I still feel like a key part of the Pacers playing better in Game 6 is just being themselves. When they up the tempo and they play fast and they're moving the ball a lot, that's when they look their best. Eventually, a defensive breakdown happens with the ball movement and screening and randomness. And it just didn't feel like, even when they got across half court, if it was a little later in the possession, that they had enough of that flow and randomness going to make the Knicks eventually mess up and get somebody a good shot. And I get that lineups are a part of that, and I get that Haliburton struggles are a part of that. But if you can't play the way you want with your identity, and Jalen Brunson is just everything's easy, it's going to be a long night. And so I think they can do better against Brunson for half of that battle. But a key thing to me, I've said this all series long with mixed results of me looking smart and stupid. But if the Pacers just play more like themselves in game 6, I'm not saying they'll win for sure, but they'll have a much, much better chance than they did in game 5, where they were just crushed and didn't look like the team that we've seen this series outside of the second half of game 3.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think on the Knicks end of things, like I'm hoping they continue to trust those bench units. It's been like it is obviously a hard thing for Tom Thibodeau to do. I've argued for Deuce McBride to play a million minutes. He hasn't been quite as and look, obviously, like in series net rating is a very fickle thing, and it is inherently a small sample size that when some of the guys are playing under 20 minutes can fall like victim to hot shooting or cold shooting. So with those caveats, I mean, he was like plus 25.3, I think, in terms of net rating through 3 games. And I was like, all right,
wow.
what are we doing here? Because that backs up everything we've seen. He's all the way down to plus 4 now for the series in limited minutes. And Landry Shamet has obviously been the preferred guy there. You referenced it. Alex trusted him all season, so I can't put him in this category. I personally am stunned by what we are seeing from Landry Shamet, who I did think, like, defensively, particularly on smaller guards, which we got to see on that play you mentioned on TJ McConnell, has been good all year. On wings, he's not been as good offensively. He's been very hit or miss, but was very hot to end the season. It doesn't play all playoffs. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know how, he's the confidence to be shooting, like, step back, toe on the line twos, like, at the start of the fourth quarter, which is just crazy. DeLon Wright, even though he did not shoot the ball well and probably was his worst game defensively of the 3 that he's played in, like, he clearly made an impact at the point of attack. Like, they played 14 and 10 minutes respectively. I would try to get Shamet close to 20. Josh Hart, I don't really think has been, I mean, he was awful in game 4. In game 5, he was clearly better, right? 10 rebounds in 34 minutes, 12 points. Like, I thought a big thing was that one play where he drove Andrew Nembhard. Like I said after game 4, I don't think he added any value on the ball or off the ball besides offensive rebounding. Like, at least there was a little half court, like, on the ball. Like, all right, if you totally ignore me, or if I have a spread floor, like, I can operate, I can, like, get downhill and do something. I think that is a swing factor for the Knicks in game 6 and 7. And if you go back to Josh Hart, I don't really want to, like, shoot or drive or really, like, meaningfully create anything. Like, just why don't you guys shoot, and I'll try to fight through 4 guys to get the ball, which, to your point, he can do occasionally, but I don't think that is a avenue for success if he's just automatically to play 30 minutes no matter what, which seems to be Tom Thibodeau's base position there. But I think upping the minutes for the other tertiary bench guys is important. And Mitchell Robinson is certainly a barometer in this one. I was kind of interested to see that he was only a +3 last night, single game, plus minus, all the same caveats I said before, but he was -20 last game. Again, that starting lineup was excellent. That means when he played without Karl Anthony Towns, he was not super effective. That being said, or at least the Knicks weren't super effective with him on the floor. That being said, I thought he swung the third quarter in a way like he hadn't really done since maybe game 3.
His defense was awesome.
It was amazing. And it doesn't feel like Haliburton, like, wants to go at him. Like, he gets that mismatch and you see Haliburton, like, not even really thinking about it, like, pretty quickly getting off the ball. And if that continues to be, like, something that's just a reality in this series, I think that is just a substantial swing factor in New York's favor, depending on how much they want to lean into him closing games. He hasn't played either of the last 2 fourth quarters. So that's something I'm watching, because I think his defense, it obviously makes Mikal Bridges look a lot better when there's that intimidation factor on the other end of those screens.
Mitch getting Precious out there was certainly a big moment in the series. We'll see if that happens again. Precious has not played particularly well, but if he can't make more than 1 or 2 every trip, the Pacers will be happy with that, given how easy it's been for the Knicks to score in these last couple games. The other thing that I think will be important for the Pacers, if possible, I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's just having a bad series, quite bad series, his worst one probably the last 2 seasons. I thought Myles Turner was going to be important in the series, make Cat move. Cat hasn't guarded him all the time, but still, like, he's got to be better at, one, making shots, just like being impactful offensively, but he could get the Knicks defense moving and in rotation by being a good screen setter and making plays at the top. And there were a lot of tweets from the Pacers community, of which I think are usually incorrect in this instance, about, like, why is Myles Turner such a focal point? He is all the time. He catches at the top and swings it all the time, or gets into his DHO game all the time. He is involved in that way with decision-making. So when he doesn't look sharp, it looks really bad and sticks out like a sore thumb, which is why I think a lot of people had those thoughts in the middle of game 5. He's got to be better, whether that's just setting better screens to make it so actions where he can pop a roll are effective, whether it's just making shots to actually, like, be impactful on offense. He's got to be better on the glass. He's getting his butt kicked there. They need more from him. I thought he was very important in their first 2 rounds. Very important against the Bucks and Cavs. They need him to be better in these coming games, because He's been the quietest good player in the series. I don't even think it's really close, and that's really hurt the Pacers, especially in a game like last night where they're looking for any edge to keep up. And like a guy who's a mismatch problem and can make threes and has made some important threes in this series has given them very little these last couple games.
Can I ask you about Andrew Nembhard? Because to me, if you'd asked who was the quietest good guy, he would have been my answer. Really, and I did not remember that he was quite good in game 1, game 2, but looking back, 6 for 10, 5 for 8, made 4 of his first 5 threes over the first 2 games. Since then, 2 for 9, 0 for 3, 1 for 9, 1 for 2, 3 for 8, 0 for 1. This is the guy, I think, Tony, we talked about it a little bit pre-series, but out of everyone on this team, I thought would have Knicks fans just pulling their hair out and would just hit those back-breaking shots. He's really been offensively, defensively, I think he's been quite good more often than not. And OG Anunoby, if I were the Knicks, I would continue to try posting OG Anunoby up on him. They got free throws off that very early in the game, and I still think that's like a point that the Knicks can kind of poke at.
That's a big size difference. Big size.
Yeah, difference. I'm surprised the Knicks don't do that more. Maybe part of it is because Andrew Nembhard is very tough and just extremely solid defensively and is able to get his hand on the ball. And OG's not particularly skillful in his post game. It's more just bowl you over, Obi Toppin style. But I say all that offensively for Nembhard. What have you seen from him? Because I would almost be surprised if you didn't put together close to a 20-point performance in game 6, or if it goes that far, game 7. Turnovers
too have been problematic for him. And the reason it's real, look, making shots is more important than missing shots. We're not breaking news here, but yeah, it's he can't, if they're going to pressure Haliburton like that, like any other ball handler who can get to the rim and make a defense get in rotation is important. He can't even do that. And that's where I think that he can be better going forward, because I think even the rosiest Pacers fan ever would admit, look, Andrew Nembhard's been awesome every playoff game he's ever played, basically, until this series. He can't make 50% of his threes for forever. Eventually he's going to have to do other stuff. Last year in the conference finals, he kicked the Celtics' butt without threes. He was being guarded by Drew Holiday and just went to the rim over and over and scored 30 points on that stage, right? He can do that. He's not asked to very much for good reason. The Pacers' offense is quite good. But I think that is something I agree that, beyond Turner is important for the Pacers. Unlocking him in some way, whether it is just that, making shots, or making him more of a creator, and he's got to cut down some mistakes in doing so. His handle's been loose in this series. Some of his turnovers are just moves he tries to make all the time and hasn't been able to, which you deserve criticism for that. You're giving the ball to the Knicks. So, yeah, he's been a big piece. I thought he'd be on Brunson more, because it's you're giving up 6 inches. That's not quite true. 4 inches in your matchup. That's tough to live with for a long game. So yeah, he just has to be much better, quite frankly. And I think he knows it better than anybody. He's been a good playoff player his whole career and has not been the last 2 games. Pacers fans have said, I had people are so bad about remembering things. They were he's been bad the whole series. I'm okay, no, that's wrong. He was very good to start the series. But yeah, I agree with you. And him and Turner both, maybe they're 2 best defenders in Neesmith's current state, although he had a great game 4. They need to be a lot better on both ends. It feels weird when the Pacers are up 3-2 and they're not feeling great after a big loss, Gavin. Can this get back to MSG? What are you thinking?
I think I have a feeling Indiana's going to win game 6. If you're asking me my gut instinct, I might just be a pessimist. So take that for what it's worth. But I think they're just going to play dramatically differently at home. And here's the thing. I think if the Knicks were equipped to beat Indiana 3 times, the Knicks would probably already have a commanding lead in this series. I said it before this series, I do think there's an argument, and maybe that's dumb after just the onslaught Indiana put on at times in game 4, where they look like a modern version of the 7 seconds or less Suns they have for a lot of this series. I still think the Knicks best ball is probably better than the Pacers, and yet they are so inconsistent in their ability to get there. And it makes sense because Indiana, I think, has the cleanest identity of any team in the league, while the Knicks, for a quote unquote great team that makes the conference finals, have an incredibly muddled one. Everyone was posting those stats after game 4. The Knicks somehow, despite being in the conference finals, had a -3 net rating for the playoffs. And that's with a 40-point win over the Celtics in that mix. They are just ultra inconsistent, and it is really hard to bank on them playing this well again. And they've gotten, for the most part, 5 offensively good to great games from Cat and Brunson. I wonder if, Brunson was really bad in game 3. I wonder if one of those guys is due to have an off night. I just think a lot has to go right for the Knicks to beat Indy in Indy again. Obviously, they've been good on the road most of the playoffs. I think 6-2 at this point. So we will see. I just have a feeling we'll get a dramatically different Pacers team. And if Indy can find that pace, find that fervor, I think it could spell trouble, especially when the Knicks are leaning double big and are unwilling to sort of like lean into a small ball shooting heavy unit around Cat that could match Indiana offensively. Like if Indy hits that high point of their offensive ceiling, it's just a little challenging for me to see the Knicks keep up. But you know what? My only counter argument would be between Bridges and Anunoby, like one of those guys is due to have a really hot shooting night. And that might be an X factor that pushes things in the Knicks' favor because Indy just hasn't really had to contest with that outside of maybe game 4 for Anunoby.
Pacers have been great at responding. They're good at adjustments. If they can do it one more time, the finals are there. If not, they got to win a game 7 in MSG. Did that last year. You don't want to have to do that again. Not fun, not exciting. We'll see. And we'll have it all on our respective shows, Locked On Pacers and Locked On Knicks. Gavin, a blast as always. You have real broadcasting work to do on TV for many, many people. Thank you so much for the time today. Everybody, check out Gavin and Alex on Locked On Knicks. Back on our respective shows after Game 6. Game 6 of a conference finals. See you then.